Morning, everybody, and welcome to our latest Inspiring Women in Tech in Conversation with webinar. I'm Sophie Burton-Jones, a partner at Mills and Reeve, and I lead our Inspiring Women in Tech group. We know that representation can be hugely important in attracting more women into the tech industry, and that is something that we've talked about in previous Inspiring Women in Tech sessions. But we also know that retaining women once they've entered the industry also needs to be a focus. A recent Engineering UK report stated that the percentage of women working in engineering and technology occupations dropped from 16.5% in 2022 to 15.7% in 2023, despite the overall proportion of the workforce working in the industry remaining at around 19.2%. The survey also looked at the age of women working in the industry, and whilst there was growth in the 16 to 34 age groups, there was a 66,000 person reduction in women working in the industry between the ages of 35 and 64, with the highest drop in the age group of 35 to 44. It's been shown that one of the key ways that tech companies can retain women in the industry is having strong and genuine diversity, equality, and inclusion policies. And with that in mind, we're delighted to be joined today by Linda Holland, Head of People at Redgate. Linda's going to talk about Redgate in a bit more detail, but just for the introduction now, Redgate is a software company headquartered and founded in Cambridge, and it's known for its inclusive culture and values. So we've asked Linda to join us today to talk about the journey she and the Redgate team have been on over the last few years to develop and roll out their diversity and inclusion strategy and policies. She's going to be interviewed by my colleague, Rebecca Cockrell. Rebecca is an employment lawyer who has been advising businesses for over 16 years on a wide range of employment queries that arise, particularly with a focus on tech companies and tech employers, from startups to fast growth businesses to large, more established organisations. The session is due to last around 45 minutes in total. We should have some time for questions at the end. So if you'd like to ask Linda any questions, please put these in the chat and I'll pick those up. We will be recording the session and it will be available. And we also, if you have any feedback, feel welcome to put that either in the chat or you can contact us separately afterwards. So I'll now hand over to Rebecca and Linda.
Thanks, Sophie. And it's great to be joined by Linda today and all her experience in the HR realm. I know she'd probably downplay that, but Linda, I'm not going to take up much more time, but starting, if you could tell us a little bit about what the company does, what Redgate does, and your role at Redgate.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. And firstly, thank you very much for inviting me here today. Redgate, as you heard, is a software company. It was founded over 25 years ago by Neil Davidson and Simon Galbraith. And the software that we develop helps our customers maintain compliance with ever-evolving data regulation. And it does this in three core ways. It protects sensitive data. It automates database deployment, so it enables teams to work smarter, so free up time for innovation. And it monitors database estates, so providing an at-a-glance view to avoid issues and optimize performance. And as can be seen here, our vision is to help teams get the most value out of their database anywhere.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it sounds impressive.
Yeah, and we're also a global business. Our head office is based in Cambridge, and our US head office is based in Austin, Texas. And we've got a number of smaller commercial offices such as LA, New York, Brisbane, Berlin, and we've just opened our office in Amsterdam.
Wow,
so
spread worldwide.
Yeah, so that's Redgate. And my role, well, like most people, I wear a number of hats. My first hat is I'm the business partner. I work with Jakob Lamek, our CEO, and our focus is all about ensuring that Redgate is set up for future success. It's got the right org design, it's got the right skills, it's got the right experience, and most importantly, it's got the right culture. And key to this is the development of an effective, high-performing exec, not just as individuals, but as an exec team. So, you know, one of our values is about we do our best work in teams. And I'm also a member of the exec, and a key part of my role is ensuring that we continue to bring the voice of the people, we continue to be open and honest and aligned with our values. And my third hat is I head up the people and the business support teams. And globally, I work through my managers. I'm responsible for business partners. We've got strategic business partners embedded in the functions, got a people ops team, I've got a talent acquisition team, and I've got a business support team. And just for clarity, the business support team includes PAs, EAs, general admin. They look after travel. And I also look after the organising of events. And these are both cross-company, but also team events, because obviously it helps with collaboration, cohesion, connection, as well as celebrating success. And they also look after what we call the GSB. It's giving something back. So they run arranges fundraising, match funding, volunteer days, etc.
That is a lot of hats, Linda. So I suspect you're spread quite thin. But would you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up working in a tech business?
Yeah, so previously I've worked in numerous industries. I've worked for the MOD, I've worked for Water Authority, manufacturing, engineering, aviation. I've worked for different companies of different sizes, small, medium, entrepreneurial businesses to really big global businesses. And I've had different roles. I've had standalone roles, and then I've also been in group roles where I've been responsible for a portfolio of businesses. I'm professionally qualified, I'm fellow CIPD, and I've had 2 children along the way. And 15 years ago, oh my goodness, I made a real conscious decision. Tech, that's where I need to be. That's where it's happening. And I applied and got offered the role of HR manager here at Redgate. At that time, it was about 110, 120 people just based in Cambridge. And my role was actually for a fixed term maternity cover for 12 months. But I accepted the role because 1, I wanted to get into tech, but 2, I felt such an affinity with Redgate's culture and its leadership. And at Redgate, we work really hard to be a values-led company. We're not a company whose values are written down on a page and chucked in a drawer, never to see the light of day again. We truly aspire to live them. We truly aspire to bring them to life on a day-to-day basis. So just as an example, you know, they're built into our recruitment processes. Everybody who comes into Redgate has a values alignment interview. Performance, promotion, reward processes, all our values are built into those. And when we're looking at making decisions, when we're devising strategy, when we're looking at new policies or processes or ways of working, we always question ourselves against the values. So we might say, you know, are we being reasonable? Is this how we would want to be treated? Is this really going to help our customers succeed? And we hope that when people do decide to go off and leave us, which ultimately they do, and hopefully go on to bigger and better things, they do that because of what we've achieved together. And they go off recommending Redgate as a really great place to work.
Yeah, and we can see that on the slides, isn't it? All the interesting, and as you say, it's so common, isn't it, nowadays, for values to be on a piece of paper, but actually the difficult part is getting it incorporated and live and breathe. So yeah, it's really good that that's your focus.
Yeah, and as we grow and evolve, you know, it's really important for us to continue to strive to be a values-led company. We'll continue to care about our people and focus on, you know, creating that supportive, that collaborative, that inclusive environment where everyone feels valued, where everyone feels respected, and where everyone feels that they belong. But that's always got to be balanced with the needs of the business.
Yeah, and what does that look like in practice? I know flexible working, for example, is a hot topic at the moment. Do you have flexible working?
Yeah, so we've always had a flexible approach. But when COVID hit, everyone had to review their ways of working. But we were really clear from the outset. We were really clear that Redgate was not a fully remote company. Fully remote roles were always the exception, not the rule. But we also knew that we could never be a fully co-located company again. So we chose the flexible hybrid model. And this balances the flexibility that Redgaters seek, but with a need to retain our collaborative culture. And flexible hybrid really engenders cohesion and social connectedness. It helps build relationships. It helps with learning and development. It helps supports well-being. There's nothing better than seeing how people are doing in the room. And all that is balanced with the need, as I said, to sustain a high-performing business. You know, we really had to ensure we avoided overcomplication, which would make Redgate too difficult or costly to manage. And we had to make sure that we delivered. And I think, as you can see here, these are our flexible working principles. And what we say is that, you know, for most roles, work in the office for 1 day a week is enough to support collaborative culture. But then some roles require more time in the office due to the nature of the work, and some require less. But although we give autonomy to the functions to decide on their blend of home and office working, it has to be balanced with what's right for the cross-company needs and what's right for the stakeholders. And what we actually say is that, you know, we require Redgaters to live nearer to an office so that they can travel to and from the office safely in a day whenever is required, whenever we need them to, for that collaborative work or specific activities that require that in-office presence.
Yeah, and they're good practical principles, I suppose, really, aren't they, to help people kind of set expectations and things like that, which is always useful. So moving on a bit to look at diversity, why do you think diversity is so important? Why do you see that as a key?
Yeah, one of the things I just want to call out before moving on to that is that we use the acronym DIB. And the reason that we use that is I push for that because for me, the belonging was the most important aspect here. So that's why through this, you'll hear me say DIB, but that's because I felt that was so important. Yeah, so why does this matter? The data, the research demonstrates the positive business benefits of having diverse teams and inclusive workplaces. For us, current and our future Redgaters are passionate about it, but also it's a natural fit with our culture and values. It's all about making sure that people feel they belong and they can thrive and they can grow. And it's just the right thing to do.
And I think it's fair to say, as Sophie outlined at the start, that obviously diversity is a struggle, particularly in the tech sector. Does Redgate follow the industry trends in terms of diversity?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like every tech business, diversity is a challenge. The majority of our Redgaters are in sales and they're in engineering. Although I would like to say our actual exec team is pretty balanced. We've got 4 male and 3 women in our
That's
exec
really good.
team.
Yeah, particularly at the senior level.
And this slide hopefully helps to illustrate the stages of the journey that we've been on. I'm going to go into a little more detail in a sec, but I just wanted to show that this is the journey that we've been on. We've gone through different phases, really. It all started with our new CEO, who Jacob Lamek, who wanted to put the DIB conversation on the table. We then went through the sort of exploration stage, you know, finding the right partner to work with, looking at the scope and focus and appointing an exec sponsor. And then we went through an experimenting stage, you know, focusing on education, awareness, upskilling managers, launching Our Belong at Redgate. And then there was the data demographic data collection, and then developing sort of functional DIB plans. And now we're in our embedding stage. So from the beginning, the one thing I was absolutely keen on, or adamant on really, I thought it was absolutely crucial that there had to be a strategic business approach to DIB. I did not want it seen as to be owned by the head of people or the people team as a project or initiative. And also there was a bit of pressure for me to recruit an internal DIB specialist. And I said no, because we would not be setting anyone up for success. DIB is a tricky area to navigate. And for me, it was absolutely essential for the exec team to be aligned strategically on where we were going, how we were going to get there, but most importantly, the role the exec had to play. And finding the right consultant to work with us was key. And I have to say, it took a couple of attempts, but eventually we found Nick Paul from Good Work Life. And she was an amazing fit for Redgate, an amazing fit for our culture, and has been an enormous support in helping us guide our journey. And as part of phase one, we worked with Nick Paul, and the main objective was to align the exec. We really need to narrow down the scope and the focus for DIB at Redgate. Now, all the execs were really passionate about it being the right thing to do, but as you can probably appreciate, had very different perspectives and very different opinions on the what and the how. And Nick helped us, with this D&I maturity matrix. She helped us assess where we were. And at the start of the journey, we were basic. We were at level 1. And I just want to say it's probably not always appropriate for every business to progress all the way to level 5. But as at Redgate, we knew we wanted to increase our DIB maturity as an organisation. And for me personally, my vision was get to a place where we were not consistently talking about DIB. I wanted to get to a place that it was so embedded in the business. It was just the way we did things around here. And as part of the process for exploring, aligning, agreeing the scope, the focus of DIB at Redgate, we agreed on our commitment statements, and they hopefully help explain what DIB means to us at Redgate and how we wanted it to positively impact our business and our people experience. They're a representation of our exec team's ambition for DIB. We also identified our first exec sponsor, who was Kate Duggan, our CMO, who's fabulous, and also our DIB champion, one of my people partners. And probably just to give you a couple of examples of what we meant in practice, belonging. What does that mean in practice? Well, part of that was becoming aware of our individual and collective biases that impede inclusivity and belonging through training and in education. And then recruitment and retention, what does that mean in practice? Well, auditing all our recruitment processes end to end to ensure they were unbiased and equitable.
So sounds like key to this was getting the right person in to support you and having that investment from the executive team to actually kind of ensure they were behind the journey, as it were. So at this point, you've aligned your leadership team, they're all bought in, and you've agreed on the early scope and focus for the DIB at Redgate. What was next? Where did you go next?
Yeah, so absolutely, we did that. And then in 2023, we moved into our phase of experimenting. And the important thing here is that it was a blend of top-down, but also localized efforts. That's really important. So we launched Our Belong at Redgate, which was our global cross-functional employee inclusion forum. We worked with our functional leaders and their management teams to upskill people managers on leading with inclusion. We ran internal comms campaigns centred around education, awareness and celebration, and they're all tied to key calendar dates throughout the year. And then we invited Redgaters to share more information about their identities and demographics. And whole objective for that was to get a baseline to better understand our people experience, whether this differs across our different demographics, our different geos, with the aim of helping us to identify any trends. We also created space for efforts to be driven by Redgaters, topics of interest, and this led to neurodiversity social group emerging and contributed ideas and efforts to DIB plans at a functional level. We had groups such as Women in Engineering, and they now meet on a quarterly basis. And this was introduced by one of the new women engineers to help build network, to share experiences, challenges, peer support. We then also had Women in Sales, and we're running a Women in Sales allyship event. And I led women in leadership sessions in person in the UK and in the US. And this was all about providing exposure to women leaders in the business. Very informal. We had lunch, we asked questions, we heard stories about challenges, successes, etc.
And where are you now, Linda? Where have you got to now?
Yeah, so as of today, we're at the embedding phase. From the work we've done previously, allyship and inclusion have really emerged as core themes, and they're the focus of the Belong at Redgate activities this year. We've also identified a need to move from education and awareness to actions, to behaviours and practical advice in our comms approach. And so in 2025, we're taking calendar touch points throughout the year as opportunities to upskill Redgaters about inclusion, about allyship at work for various different demographics. We've also developed more detailed and specific functional DIB plans that support our company efforts while taking into account the different demographics and priorities our different functions have, and the areas where they're best placed to support within Redgate. So examples of this, our engineering function is prioritising gender balance and neurodiversity inclusion based on the needs of their teams. Product are looking into accessibility improvements that can make our software easier. And between marketing and business support, the focus is making our internal and external events more inclusive. Now, as I mentioned, my ultimate goal is to make DIB business as usual at Redgate, not a special initiative, not a one-off, but something we consider by default as part of our everyday working practices, part of how we do things here. And coming back to the maturity matrix, over the past 4 years, we feel we've progressed from level 1 to level 3, but we've still got more work to do towards, to get towards our integrated business as usual goal.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a constant evolution, always more you could be doing. So what's next?
Yeah, so next is we're going to continue evolving and delivering our functional and company level plans. Going to continue to focus the shift from education and awareness to practical allyship. We're going to review the exec sponsorship, because as we said, we wanted shared leadership responsibility here. And then, DIB on a page, a clear plan with clear division of responsibilities, what sits with the exec sponsor, what sits with the exec, what sits with the functions.
And what were your key learnings?
Lots of key learnings. Firstly, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It actually took Redgate a few years from beginning this conversation to taking visible actions within the business. Getting the right support in, that was an absolute game changer for us. Finding someone who understood our company, who understood our culture. And then for us, for Redgate, this required a collective, a company-wide approach. company-wide effort from the exec sponsor, people partner champion, supporting leadership teams across the business functions to implement DIB initiatives that align with their localized challenges, reflecting the needs of the people in their teams, but also aligning the exec team on the what and the how. That was absolutely key. And we are seeing year-on-year improvements with the mean and median gender pay gap. And when it comes to overall gender balance in some of the typically less represented areas like engineering, you know, through targeted efforts to diversify our talent pipeline, embed inclusive recruitment practices and ways of working, we are seeing continual improvement with gender balance in engineering. So it sort of moved from circa 6% in 22 to 13% in 2024, and it has gone up since then. And also our FIMO scores, our always on engagement tool, you know, for inclusion and belonging, you know, is increasing. So looking forward, continue to stress with a collective, continuous, company-wide approach, we're hoping that our ongoing efforts to integrate inclusive changes in our day-to-day activities, our people practices, our working environment, it will continue to create a lasting positive impact across the whole of the people life cycle. And quite frankly, would just be the way we do things around here.
And just going back on a few points, Linda. So you mentioned your groups that you have, such as women in engineering and things like that. Are they quite well taken up? Do Redgaters engage with those?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we've obviously, as we said, we want to make sure that these groups are led in the areas, the best place that they're led localized, and absolutely that they are taken up, and we are seeing positive impact of those with those groups. And you know, even as we said, to build networks, to share experience, challenges, peer support. But with the managers, they've obviously had you know, leading with inclusion training. There's really good conversations going on.
And you mentioned the kind of looking at it at the engineering function, prioritizing gender balance and neurodiversity, product looking into accessibility improvements. Who chooses where, you know, which areas they want to focus on?
Those areas, because they look at what is the problems they're trying to fix, what are the challenges that they have in those particular areas. So that's why the localized, taking ownership of it is so important.
So you almost empower them to look, to review and think about where they want to focus.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
It's been really interesting, Linda, and I can see you've done so much. There's almost
a team effort, though. That's the thing I wanted to get across. It's a real cross-company business. It's a team effort. It's something that needs that.
Everyone needs to be involved. Everyone needs to get involved. And yes, you might spearhead, use your experience to help, but fundamentally, it's a team approach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've had a fab exec sponsor, and I've got, as I say, a champion in my team, but absolutely.
And you said the exec sponsor, I think, rotates. Is that right as well?
Yes, that's our objective. Again, it's about making sure that responsibility is shared.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Linda.
So we've got some time now for some questions, if anybody wants to put those in the chat at all. There's a couple that have come through. So first is, how does Redgate measure the success of its diversity and inclusion initiatives, and what metrics do you find most useful? I know you mentioned a couple there, but yeah, it'd be helpful to get any more information on that.
So I think it was 2023 we started our demographic data collection. So obviously it will take a few years so that we can measure year on year. So and we have a FIMO always on engagement tool, inclusion and belonging, which we can cut and slice in functions, in roles, demographics, and so we can use that data. But also, you know, there's the gender pay gap, and there's the you know, all the analysis that we can do looking at our pipeline when we recruit, you know, who gets through the first set of interviews, who gets through the second. So we can cut and slice that data as well. So we've tried to look at the whole employee. Obviously we can, going forward, we want to get information with regards to promotions, etc. But there's more work to be done, but the whole objective over the last few years was getting the foundations in place.
Did you struggle getting the data, or because I know not some people that can be a challenge because it's not something they've held previously or really looked at?
Encouraging people to provide the data, yes, and we will continue to encourage people to provide the data.
Rather than a kind of, encouragement, this is the benefit, let's see what we can do kind of thing.
Absolutely, yes.
And another question coming through is, does Redgate benchmark your progress towards DIB against other companies?
We haven't actually, if I'm honest. We're benchmarking ourselves against our maturity matrix as to where we sit. We haven't actually gone out there yet to benchmark against other people.
It's your thought process, you just want your culture to be the best it can be, kind of.
Yeah, I was just going through my mind then. I don't want to look like I'm just so internally focused. But I think you're right. We just want to make sure we get it right, and we've set all the firm foundations on which to build going forward. And you know, we've had to work hard. I've probably, through this presentation, it probably sounds a bit easier than it's been. It's been hard work, but I think we're pretty proud of where we've got to, without being too complacent and too smug that we've still got. It's a work in progress.
And you mentioned as well, it's always difficult, isn't it? Because when we chatted before on this about like the gender pay gap and things like that, it can easily be skewed by small changes and things like that. So actually, sometimes that kind of comparison can not be that helpful. It's looking at the long term almost, isn't it? The trajectory, the where you're heading almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking the engineering improvements that we've seen. I mean, yes, we can look at external. What is the external normally in tech companies with you know, the gender balance? But I think as long as we are seeing continual improvements, and we're implementing, you know, processes and ways of working of just making people feel that they belong. Yeah, as you say, I don't really want to get caught up with too much external. Let's make sure we get it right for the right reasons.
Yeah, and I can really tell from speaking to you that, you know, belonging is such a passion for you to actually be the focus and look to do that. Really does come across.
Absolutely, thank you.
And another question that's come through is, what role do you think mentorship and sponsorship play in retaining women in technology? And how do you implement that effectively? I mean, again, I think you've talked about that a little bit already in terms of your groups and things like that, but is there anything to add to that?
I think they play absolutely vital roles. Yes, as part of the groups, as you know, women in sales, women in engineering, and women in leadership. All you know, the sponsorship and the mentorship and the allyship comes out of all those groups, but also, you know, external mentors as well is really important. I think you know, it's there's a balance of doing internal and external, but absolutely key. Having people women that you can look up to, having women who have stood in your shoes. You know, they're all really important things that add to development, understanding, appreciation. I think all absolutely key.
Great. I think that's all the questions that we've had come through, unless anybody wants a quick last minute one in the chat. But it doesn't look like it. So on that note, thanks everyone for joining us today, and thanks very much, Linda, you know, for your time and your insights. It's really interesting to hear about what a company is actually doing on the ground, and how they're, you know, working with that kind of in mind and that focus. If you'd like any more information about our Inspiring Women in Tech group, then we have a LinkedIn page that you can follow and interact with. As I said at the start, we're always on the lookout for future speakers and or feedback about sessions you might want to hear about. So if you're interested in joining us or have a proposed topic, then we'd absolutely love to hear from you. You can contact us through the LinkedIn page, but Rebecca and my contact details are also available on the Mills and Reeve website as well. So thanks again, everybody, and thanks, Linda, and we'll leave it there and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.